Hello there. My name is Shao. I'm 35 years old, relative to the upload date, I should say. I just found out something that I've been looking for many years, and that's the name of a condition that I've had for many years. Today it looks like some people refer to this condition as visual snow, and that's news to me. I'd been searching for it for years on the internet, and with people that I've met and spoken to, but nobody seemed to understand what I was describing, or nobody had the same thing. And surely enough, looking at it now on the internet, it does seem to be a rare condition, apparently. So what it is basically is that my field of vision is covered with uncountably many infinitesimally small flickering dots. Basically, they're multicolored, but at the same time, this whole field of these dots is transparent enough that I can see what's actually what's real behind them. What it sort of resembles actually is what you might get from a digital video camera in dark lighting conditions, and maybe zoomed in. There's all these multicolored flickering sort of picture elements, and that's sort of what it resembles, I guess you could say. But anyway, I'm documenting this discovery today before I read more about it, because I don't want to bias or pollute my own experiences and confuse them with the experiences of other people. So first I'm doing this video before I dig deeper into what other people have to say about visual snow, and that way I won't accidentally do the very human thing of bringing in nice bits of what other people have had to say into my own story, I guess you could say. But I have seen a couple of YouTube videos already of people talking about their experiences, and one thing that struck me right away was that for these people, they experienced them sort of relatively recently, either as adults or as young adults, whereas I feel sort of like a visual snow veteran, perhaps, because I actually have had this condition and have been paying attention to this condition since the early 80s, I believe. Sometimes people remark about my memory for things. I have maybe an unusual memory of special events, and I remember the episode with which my visual snow condition, began. I don't remember which year it was, because I wasn't paying attention to that sorts of things as a child, but my family lived in Toronto between 1983 and 1987, I believe, and I do know that it began somewhere in there because I remember which apartment we were living in when it began. The way it went down was, it was one night when I was in bed. I'd already been put away in the bedroom. It was dark, and visual snow for a lot of people is more apparent when it's dark, but I didn't have it yet. I was just looking at a picture in a frame on the wall of Mickey Mouse. I think he was doing a nice smiling pose, but it was dark, so I couldn't quite make out all the features, but I roughly knew the shape of him in the pose because I remembered it from the daytime. And I was just looking at it, and right in the very middle of the picture began a flashing dot, just a tiny, infinitesimally small, blinking light, like the kind of light you'd see from a firework or a pixel on a television screen or computer screen. And it was flickering very quickly, cycling through all of the different colors. Pardon me. Not in any particular order, though. So it was going through the colors very quickly, but not as you would find them in in the rainbow, for example. It was more random, and it was so quickly cycling through all of these colors that it's difficult to say whether or not at any one moment it was a particular color, because it was so fast, the changing that it was doing. But anyway, I was looking at that and I was intrigued. I thought, oh, that's kind of like a cartoon, and that's kind of appropriate because it's over top of this Mickey Mouse picture, and he's a cartoon character. So I was looking at this flickering light, and then it lasted that way for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden neighbors began to spread out from that one single point, and they spread out and they filled up the picture frame of the Mickey Mouse picture. And so they remained all within this rectangle, and they were all copies of this same original, but each with their own state. So they weren't all cycling through the same color at the same time. Each one was independent. They were all flashing their own colors all the time. And that lasted for a few seconds, and I was intrigued by that. And just as I thought, I wonder if they'll spread to beyond the picture frame, just as I thought that, I was halfway through thinking that with the words in my head, when surely enough they did. More and more of them spread out from outside of the picture frame until it covered my entire field of vision, and they've been there ever since. So that was either in 1983, 1984, 5, 6, or 7. I know not which, but it was in there. I was very young anyway. And one of the first things that I thought to myself as a child, when it was all still there upon waking the next day, is this is an awful lot like static on a television, only multicolored. So the snow on a TV is usually black and white and shades of gray. Of course, that probably doesn't happen to most people anymore with digital televisions and such. But anyway, it did back then on the cathode ray tube televisions, and that's what I thought it resembled as a child. And also, up close on a television screen, it looked like the red, green, and blue bars that make up the picture elements of a television. So anyway, I probably have tried discussing it with my parents and over the years, but it's difficult to describe, and it didn't really interfere with my daily living. It was more of an interesting piece of trivia than anything else, I suppose. But nobody ever really took it seriously that I ever spoke to, and nobody else seemed to ever have it. I've never met anyone that's had it yet. But in the age of the internet, I thought, well, somebody's got to have this. And what I decided that they were hallucinations, akin to hypnagogic hallucinations when you're falling asleep, or hypnopompic when you're coming awake. But that was the wrong search term. I shouldn't have looked for hallucinations, because all of these years I never found it that way, using that search term. It was today I just so happened to get a YouTube suggested video about visual disturbances that everyone has, or something like that. So thumbs up to the makers of that video for giving me the lead to visual snow, because that's what they called it in the video. What else can I say? Oh yes, so as a what I'd like to consider myself a veteran. Anyone who's got it right now and who's only been dealing with it for under 10 years, I'd like to tell you that of my probably close to 30 years of dealing with it, it hasn't been a huge negative impact on my life. It's just been a sort of a thing about me that I sometimes share with friends just to talk about, but it's not much of a discussion point because other people can't really relate to it, it seems. But anyway, I do want to also share, though, some of my findings. Once upon a time, somebody asked me if I saw these things in my dreams, because I had already decided that this isn't exactly related to eyeballs. I think if I went blind or my eyes were plucked out, I would still have the same visual snow. By the way, maybe I should clarify, I'm pretty sure that that name comes from, it's disassociated 2 generations removed or so from actual snow that falls from the sky. That is to say, television snow is so-called snow because it resembles falling snow in a flurry. And then this visual snow, I think, is called visual snow probably because it resembles the television phenomenon, not because it resembles snowflakes so much. But maybe they do, I don't know. Anyway, somebody asked me if I saw this stuff in my dreams, and my answer was yes, because I've already decided it's not related to eyeballs whatsoever. It's probably neurons in the brain, as opposed to rods and cones having misfires in the eyeballs. And before I go much further, I should warn you, if you don't have visual snow, it's remotely possible that I might say something in this video that will cause you to wake up to it. It's like seeing something and never being able to unsee it, for example. So if you don't want visual snow and you don't have it already, maybe you should put it out of your mind and forget all about it and move on to cats or something else. But I sort of suspect that visual snow might be just simply the ability of certain individuals to perceive something that other people are able to ignore or are inclined to ignore naturally. So a part of me can't help but think that everybody actually has some degree of this visual snow phenomenon, but that most, let's say, normal people are able to put it out of their mind, ignore it, or their brains have adapted to, or their brains are inclined, I should say, to not make a deal out of it or bring it into conscious awareness, into focus. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. That's just a theory. Anyway, I did have a lucid dream one time where I remembered somebody's challenge. Their question was, do you see it in your dreams? I had a lucid dream one time and I thought, oh, I'm having a lucid dream, terrific. Wasn't there something I was supposed to do? Didn't somebody have something for me? Oh yes, it was a question, that's right. Do I see, and just as I was thinking about the question, do I see these hallucinations, as I used to call them, surely enough, I looked around in the dream and it was a nice crisp lucid dream, as they tend to be. 3 dimensions, blades of grass, each having their own distinct character. All was very crisp and clear, and surely enough, even behind that was this field of static, multicolored static. But then again, in dreams anything can happen, so maybe it's not there usually in dreams, and I just summoned it because I was thinking about it, and that was part of the dream too. Who knows? But anyway, I have noticed some things that other people might be interested in, and that's that it's certainly, in my experience, affected by what you put into your body there. So caffeine is a big one, nicotine, and ethyl alcohol, that is the same kind of stuff, it's what you get drunk on, and so on. These things can affect these hallucinations. It's going to be a hard habit for me to get into saying visual snow instead of hallucinations, because that's what I've always referred to them as. But and lack of sleep. So if I'm awake for a long time, then they'll start acting up. And by acting up, I should describe that a little better. Normally, it's just the same. It's just a sort of a regular static, and it's, as I say, it's the same sort of thing you get with a digital camera at night or zoomed into a dark color. Just this flickering, multicolored, but at the same time you still manage to see what's behind it. If there's an object or a picture behind it, this buzzing about of multicolored dots doesn't really interfere with the overall image. That's usually the case. But when falling asleep or waking up, or lack of sleep, or too much caffeine or alcohol, or the first cigarette after days without, or something like that, and so on, they can start to do, these dots can start to do other things. So for the most part, they resemble, remember, they're infinitesimally small. For the most part, they resemble a circle so small that you can't really describe how much space it would occupy, because it's just a pinpoint. But still, somehow, around that circle is another circle. So it's a concentric circle, and there might be a few more circles outside of that, maybe another one or two. But because this is all so small, it's very difficult to say. You can't freeze it and say, and count them and say how many circles are surrounding the innermost circle. You can't pinpoint it. It's all so small and so fast. But anyway, most of the time it's all of those circles around each other and repeating. I should say each one is a unit like that, a circle with a few circles surrounding it, and they're different colors that they're flashing. Each one of those is a unit, and then the field of vision is covered by all of those units, tiled across by those sorts of units. But in certain states of being, they can do different things. So I have seen them grow larger and do sorts of different geometric shapes. I do remember the most. Sometimes they've done things that resembled paisley. But one of the most fascinating things that I ever observed was I was looking at a mirror one time, and I stretched out and just looked at myself in the mirror, and I happened to catch the reflection of myself in my pupil in the mirror image, and it was very small. And then the dots, if you will, decided to copy that shape, and then they tiled across my field of vision with that same shape. So it's the shape of me stretching with my hands behind my head, tiled across my whole field of vision, all still flashing through the different colors, but they weren't dots. They were this absurd image of me stretching with my hands behind my head. So that was probably the strangest thing that they've ever done. But other than that, certainly while falling asleep, they start getting involved with the hypnagogic stuff. So hypnagogic hallucinations, you'll have usually blobs of color or waves of color sweeping across your vision and sweeping over itself and changing light and dark. These dots start to play, though, in that space as well, and they'll change shape, and they'll tend to have clusters of color sometimes, or they'll have a quick few patterns of sort of random or chaotic color. That's fleeting, though. They don't last very long. What it seems to be is the image that you see is if you ask yourself the question, well, what is it made up of? You might believe that it's photons hitting your rods or your cones or however it works in your eye, and then those send signals along the optic nerves into your brain, and then your brain puts it all together there. So if you ask yourself, oh, what's the granularity of vision? What's the finest detail that I can possibly see with my eye? If you have something, for simplicity's sake, if you have a sheet of paper with all the same color, and you look very closely at it, and you think, what's the shortest distance that I can discern with my eye between 2 points on that paper? So as tiny a space as it can be, if you ask yourself, well, what's in between those 2 points? If I can perceive 2 points close together, and that's as small a space as I can perceive, what if I try looking between those 2 points, or imagining between those 2 points? And I sort of get the sense that the size of these dots is what fills up that space in between. So, in other words, these dots seem to be what's in between what can actually be truly represented by the rods and cones in the eyeball, if you will. Yeah, I guess it's hard to describe. But anyway, this is just the first video that I'm making about it, so it'll interest some people and won't interest others. What else can I say? Oh yes, so about diet there, for me it's certainly had reactions to compounds that I've ingested. So it could be some kind of a neurological thing that can be perhaps treated someday, but that then you have to ask, though, well, is this a disease? For some people, especially people that have encountered it in their adulthood, I would gather that it would be startling to them and perhaps a bit of a nuisance. But I can say that after my 30 or so years of having it, I don't regard it quite that way anymore. It's only when I choose to think about it does it actually interfere with me. And maybe that's a different experience for other people. Maybe for some people it's so vivid or cartoon-like that they can never put it out of their mind. I've been in states where it's been much more vivid or cartoon-like, but it's that's not the typical case for me. But I don't exactly regard it as a disease. I sort of regard it as just a person's my ability to sort of tune into it instead of ignoring it. And is that a disease? I don't know. It doesn't negatively affect my life that I can tell or that I can think of. It's a bit of a disease when I think about how rare a condition it is. I've never met anyone that has it, so it might make me feel a little lonely sometimes. But now that I've found out that there are other people and that it's got a name, visual snow, then I'll never have that problem again. What else can I say about that? Yeah, I don't really think it's a disease. If you're taking a shower and you see the streams of water coming out of the shower head there, I don't know if you're able to shift your eyes quickly from top to bottom as you're watching the stream of the shower. And what you might notice, if you're lucky, is that for a moment you can see individual drops of the streams of the shower. Just for an instant, while your eyes are moving, you might be able to catch the actual individual drops instead of seeing a sort of a blur of streams. I sort of feel that like that's something akin to what's actually happening there, is that there's there's a lot of information coming into the nervous system or the brain, and the brain does a good job of smoothing things out for the most part. But if you want to, or if you've found out how to, perhaps by accident, you might be able to tune into the fine detail. And I sort of get the sense that this is some of the fine detail of the chaos of visual information processing that's happening in the brain. And it's just that I so happen to be able to tune into it. It's always there. It's never not there, but it's not always in your face. It's not like somebody poking you repeatedly saying, "Hey, what about me? I'm still here. Pay attention to me." It's not like that for me, and maybe that's what it's like for some other people with this problem, with this condition, and that's why it's a problem for them. Well, anyway, that's a pretty long chat, but if you're out there and you have this visual snow, you've probably figured it out already. You're not alone. If it makes you feel any better, I've had it and been thinking about it a great deal for about 30 years or so, and please feel free to leave a comment about your experience there. I'll be reading through some of those. And hopefully you don't regard it as a problem if it isn't a problem for you. If it's startling you because you've had it for just less than 10 years or so, know that you can exist perfectly well with it. I don't know if we'll ever find out how to get rid of it, or if it's something that warrants being rid. Something else I was going to say there a moment ago. I think your eyes are going to be just fine. Your eyes will have normal eye problems. Floaters and the squiggly stuff you see when you look at a blue sky, all of that seems to be, that's all separate stuff. That's real eyeball stuff. But this, I think, is further back up in the brain there. Not to do with rods and cones. We'll know for sure if somebody with visual snow goes blind or suffers an eye injury, and they'll be able to report whether or not they still have that visual snow. That's not to say do that to anybody, but anyway. What else can I say? It's yeah, if you're startled, it's okay. It'll be all right. Well, I can't remember or think of what else to say. So anyway, have a pleasant day.